25. It's amazing how fast time passes now. And I wanted to talk today a little bit, as a lot of you probably are already thinking about what are you wanting to create in this new year? What things maybe do you want different? You might have had a few discussions around that over the last couple of weeks. And I wanted to talk to you about making it happen and how to identify what the gap is in between what you wish your reality was and what it actually is right now. And what do you want it to be and what has it been so far? Being able to identify, seeing that maybe there's a gap that made 2024 not quite exactly what you hoped it was. I find so often at the beginning of the year, people will talk about all the goals that they have and what they want to do. And the phrase that I think drives me a little crazy sometimes is when people say, it's just going to be so much better than last year. If you don't have a plan, you might be saying that again. And I think it can be so much better than last year. And I think you have everything you need in yourself to make it so much better than last year. But I think you might need to arm yourself with a plan to actually put that into action as well. And then at the end of this year, you can say, I hope next year is so much like this last year and even better because it was amazing. And that's what I'm hoping all of you feel at the end of this year. So let's identify what is the gap that is missing, that has kind of create a cavern between what you were hopeful for in 2024 and what you're hopeful for now. Or maybe you've already found yourself making some amazing successes and now you just have new goals that you're wanting to identify and to bring in. So the first thing that I would want to suggest is to stop wishing for the reality that you wish was. A lot of times we will feel like we wish the past had been different, or if only this part of our lives had been different from what it is now. And there's this desire to change the past instead of recognizing what an incredible empowerment you have right here now in the present moment. And when you stop longing for what you wish was before, and you start longing for creating a spark of desire to create what you want now, it's a shift that happens in our brains. So let go of wishing that you could change the past or wishing you had a better springboard to launch from right now, and instead recognizing where you are and taking a moment to pause and to identify what is the gap in between where you are and where you want to really be. You might find that it's just a small gap and it doesn't feel like it's much to change or to create to step over it, or it might feel like it's a big cavernous leap between two mountains and you're not quite sure how you're going to fly across that. But all of it is possible simply by creating a plan, with that first step being identifying what that gap is. One of the ways that we can do that is by looking at the past and recognizing, what did I learn from the past? If you feel like you are maybe in a relationship that is unfulfilling or not quite what you want it to be, very frustrating perhaps, whatever it is, start to recognize, what are you learning from the situation? Maybe at the end of 2024, maybe you got rid of a relationship that you felt like you were done with, and now you're ready to explore more about yourself. Don't start doing that until you evaluate what went wrong with the relationship that you were in. Or maybe you've been looking for a new job and maybe you quit the job that you hated in 2024. Don't start looking for that new job and expect it to be perfect until you first evaluate what was wrong with the last one. And when I say evaluate what was wrong, I don't mean point the finger at that boss was terrible, that partner was totally wrong, they were wrong with everything, and it was all everybody else all the time. That's the easy part. That's the part that our ego wants to say, well, yes, of course it wasn't me. I was the best. I was a model employee. I was an amazing partner. But probably, even if there were parts where you were amazing, which you probably were in parts, there are probably other parts that maybe you weren't. Maybe you could have done better. Maybe you could have shifted your mind in certain ways. Maybe you could have done less in certain ways that would have been to a benefit. Recognizing, learning, looking at truly what is your history. If you're finding yourself currently in an unsatisfying relationship or in a place where you're not in a relationship right now and you feel like you've had a string of unsatisfying relationships, it is important to go back and evaluate what could you have done differently in each of those? What were some some examples of things that maybe you should have paid attention to sooner? What are some ways that you could have changed? What are things that you learned in the process? And what do you bring into the next relationship that you seek? Same thing with jobs. If you are looking for a new job, instead of feeling like it is always the other coworkers or managers or other family members, if it's issues within your family, instead of feeling like whatever is keeping you from what you want as a fulfilling life, instead of seeing it as having anything to do with anyone else, do an inventory and start to figure out what things maybe could you do different? Because that is where you gain your power back to get the strength to make a leap over that divide, over that gap that is separating you from the life that you truly want, that will be fulfilling and rewarding and bring joy and peace or adventure or whatever it is that you are looking for in your life. It is about recognizing, what can you learn? What can you change? Because you cannot change anything about anyone else. You can't make your partner do certain things or think certain ways or change their behavior. You can't make your coworkers or your employees or your managers change certain things or work certain ways or have a different outlook. What you can do is recognize how you can become a person that is maybe a bit more inspiring. Maybe you find that a lot of the words coming out of your mouth are very negative. Maybe you have a very pessimistic outlook on a lot, or you expect the worst in people, and then you start seeing them proving themselves to match the expectation that you have of them when they are around you. When you start to look at what can you do different in yourself, you pull your power back into yourself, because everyone reacts to other people based on the energy that you are sending out. So you may have noticed that you probably have a lot of people in your life, that you may act a certain way around certain people and a little bit differently around other people. Maybe family are triggers for you, or maybe you feel like your significant other will always be there, so you feel like you can just dump whatever you want on them and you don't think about how that makes them feel. And when we start to recognize that the way we treat others, the way we think of others, that is what we can change in ourselves. We can change our outlook. We can change our energy, the energy that we use to greet the day, the energy that we use to greet the people that walk into the room with us, the energy that you use to greet your partner when they come into the room. That energy is what they will be responding to. You teach other people how to treat you by the energy that you send off, not just by your words, not just by the actions, but by the energy that you put into your words, the energy that you put into your actions. And it's when we start to pull back and we learn and we look at, what can I learn from 2024? Do an inventory and look at, what were the highlights? What were 5 things that went really well that you enjoyed about 2024? What did you do that had a hand in creating those things? What are the 5 things that you really wish didn't happen, or you kind of wish you could have changed if you could have gone back in 2024? look at, especially with those, what did you do? What could you have done differently? What energy or expectation did you bring into that space? And recognizing how you can pull your power back into yourself to identify the gap that separates you from creating what you really and truly want, and surrounding yourself with people and energies that are supportive, that are uplifting for you as you go into 2025. There's a couple examples that I wanted to discuss as we stop and kind of look at the gap, because when we look at the gap, it starts to bring in, and especially when we start to learn from the past. When we learn from the past, we look at the past, we learn from the past, and we start to identify what happened. It helps us to unlock this miraculous energy, this miraculous wisdom that we can then carry into all of the plans that we make for what we are creating now in this moment, in each moment moving forward. So then as we look at the gap, do you feel like you can identify, think about what it is, what are your goals for this year, and identifying what is it that is stopping you from getting there. So maybe if we back up a little bit to some more day-to-day habits, maybe you are wanting to stop smoking or stop drinking, or maybe there's a different unhealthy habit that you are wanting to let go of and not continue to carry with you. Maybe you tend to worry a lot, or maybe you tend to get angry a lot. Are those certain traits that you want to let go of as we come into 2025? I recommend identifying one, not trying to do a whole bunch of them at once, because when you identify one thing that you want to let go of at a time, it really gives you more power and focus to really let that one thing go. And then you can celebrate when you feel you've achieved a milestone with that. You might have 3 different goals of things that you're building, but I would recommend one thing that you want to let go as a focus at a time. So if you are wanting to, let's say you are wanting to build healthier eating habits, and so you want to, maybe you're wanting to cut out any processed food in this next year. So that's something you're wanting to let go of. And maybe you also want to bring in a workout routine. You're trying to figure out a healthy habit that you can bring into each day that will fit with the lifestyle that you have. So instead of just wishing for that and thinking, okay, for this week, I'm clearing out, getting rid of all the processed food, and I'm going to do a walking workout maybe every day, or I'm going to run for a mile. A lot of times we'll set these big goals. I'm going to work out an hour every day. Maybe you need to break it down a little bit more. When we look at the gap, what is the gap that has separated you from achieving this versus kind of staying in the same pattern that you've been in before? Look at the gap of what do you need to shift so that it doesn't just become a goal for this week that falls into maybe 2 weeks, and then by February you've totally forgotten what your New Year's goals were. Look at the gap. So if you feel like in this last year you had a hard time carving out time for a meditation program, or carving out time for a workout routine, then what were the barriers that separated you from that? If you look at the gap and you see that it's very hard for you to get out of the house and get to a gym and to carve out that space where you go to a different environment and work out, then maybe you can change that gap by doing workout videos on your TV at home. If you feel like you've tried to do it during the middle of the afternoon, or you think you'll do it after work, say, and that hasn't worked out, maybe you need to get up an hour earlier in the morning. Or maybe that hour is too much of an expectation. So we want to kind of work on filling the gap instead of just leaping over it all the way. And so maybe you want to set up for 15 minutes every morning. You're going to get up 15 minutes earlier and you're going to throw on a walking workout. You want to keep it simple to start out. And every morning for 15 minutes, you do a walking workout with people on YouTube, and you start feeling your body getting better. In a couple weeks, then fill that gap a little bit more and make it 30 minutes that you do the walking workout. Or maybe then you'll want to add in 15 minutes of aerobic exercise and 15 minutes of walking. Find out a way that sets you up for success so that you create a pattern that creates success. And the same thing, I don't think there are as many people that smoke as there used to be, but there may be some of you watching that is something that you're wanting to shift as a habit. So look at your gap. What separates you from that? Do you smoke just mainly because you're craving the cigarette, or are you smoking because you get really stressed and you find that when you're stressed, that's when you find yourself wanting to smoke? Then identify what is that trigger. Or maybe it's when you're around certain people that you have that desire to smoke or to drink or whatever the habit is that you want to let go of. So maybe you need to not think of it as, I'm just going to quit all of this altogether and be down on yourself, feeling like you're failing at your own health. I think a lot of times people get caught up in a lot of negative self-talk, kind of beating themselves up. Instead of that, look at it simply as the gap. So is this something that I'm using to fulfill when I'm stressed? Do you go for eating something sweet when you get stressed and you're trying to cut out sugars? Then don't look at just what the food is or what the nicotine is or whatever it is. Instead, look at the gap and look at what is causing me to crave this. If it is stress, maybe you need to create a different routine. Maybe you need to focus on some internal breathing. Maybe you need to, instead of spending money on that habit, go out and buy yourself fresh flowers instead, or bring something that brings beauty and joy into your home that you can look at instead. And so every time you start feeling that craving for whatever the unhealthy habit is, look at what you brought into your home instead and implement some techniques that help you reduce stress or reduce the craving. Look at what is the gap that is separating you from the goal that you want to have and where you are right now. Sometimes it feels great to leap right over that. That might be where you are cold turkey, stopping that unhealthy habit, not looking back to make that leap. You're going to need to also set yourself up for success. So think about, what are you bringing into your life? What are you running towards? If you're always focused on what you're running away from and what you don't want to have, then your focus is on it and you're always going to want it. So instead, look at, what are you focusing on? What are you running towards? What are you creating? What are you drawing in? That then will help you leap over that gap instead of falling into it. I think a lot of time there's a mid-January, February trap where people will start running towards their goal and then they just fall down into the gap and they don't know what just swallowed them or where their goal went, as by March it's totally gone and forgotten. And so instead, set yourself up for success by identifying what is the gap. I have had several people talking to me lately about the gaps that surrounds job or career, and people wanting to take a leap into something that they really enjoy. And so identify, what is the gap that you are coming up against. If you are in a job or career that you're just really unhappy with and you're wanting to switch to something else, or you're kind of looking for a job but you're not really sure if you want to do the job, really do an inventory inside. Right now there are so many jobs available, and there is such a shortage of workers in so many industries and fields. If there was ever a time to dream about, what do you really want to do? What do you really want to be? What would fulfill you on a career level? This is a time to go out and to chase it and to do it and to apply for it, to believe in yourself and to know that you can, and to let yourself soar and to not be afraid of getting that no answer sometimes. I think that our human nature so often is afraid of rejection. And so we feel like if somebody says no to us or they don't hire us or whatever that no is from, it can be taken on such a deep personal level when it's really not about that. Every no that you get is getting you closer to the yes that will be helping you lead that life that is fulfilling your dreams. If you are working on writing a book, but you're afraid to send it out to publishers, don't be afraid of the no, because you might need 100 no's before you get the yes that's the right publishing company to go with. Let yourself really get excited about when you hear no, because you know that's getting you closer to what your goal is. If you are in a field, I've seen this quite a bit lately as well, where someone has taken the leap into a field that they really love and enjoy, where you have to be your own boss and you are needing to be a self-starter within yourself. Look at what that gap is. If you feel like you're not getting the business that you want, if you're not making it the way you want to, what is in the gap? Are you truly spending at least 4 hours a day, maybe 8 or 10 hours a day, really working towards creating what you want? Are you really working towards building up, getting yourself out there, getting known by people? Are you putting in the time, effort, and energy that you would put into it if you were working for somebody else? You might need to separate yourself. I feel like so often there's an American dream where people feel like if you work for yourself, then that's the American dream, because you can live the life that you want and just enjoy all the success and enjoyment of it, not having to answer to somebody. But you always have to answer to yourself, whether it is in a job sense, in a relationship sense, or any kind of habit that you're creating within yourself. I think oftentimes we don't realize that, and we try to sneak things past ourselves and act towards ourselves as though, no, we've got it. We did all the stuff that we need to do. But did you really? If you had to answer to somebody else, what have you done today to set yourself up for success? What have you done today to get you towards your goals? How much time did you invest into what you need to do to get you towards your goals? What would your answer be if you were saying that to somebody else and you had to prove to them exactly what you did that day, every day this week? Set yourself up for success and hold yourself accountable to doing what it is that you need to do as well. Because when you do that, you will start finding yourself soaring so beautifully into creating all of the goals that your heart desires. It takes a plan, it takes a lot of action, it takes accountability, and it takes believing in yourself. And also knowing that you are worthy of this. You are worthy of a relationship that is filled with peace. You are worthy of filling yourself with so much love. You are worthy of experiencing joy in the day-to-day and being able to achieve whatever those goals are that you have. You need to know that in yourself. So do the work and then look at the gap. Look at what is separating you from whatever those goals are. What is separating you from finally letting go of whatever unhealthy habits you have? What is separating you? Don't be afraid to look at the gap. I think a lot of times people are afraid if they look in that gap, it might swallow you up, or you might have to do something about it. And you do have to do something about it. But when you look at the gap, it's not scary anymore. You can see exactly what it is that is separating you, and you can find that resiliency, that strength, that stamina, the resources that you need to get you exactly to where you need to go to be fulfilling all of the dreams that you have for this year, for every year, for this day, for every day, recognizing that it is a moment to moment, day to day thing, and that you have the power, just like the sun comes up with every new dawn and it sets every evening. You have the ability within you to rise every morning with desire, with motivation, step forward with that plan of action, invest in yourself, implement the tools you have into yourself today so that when you go to bed at night as the sun sets, you will be able to be satisfied, rest, receive, replenish yourself so that you wake up with that desire, that strength, that motivation. You have the ability to make 2025 an amazing year on every level in your life. I believe in you. I hope you believe in yourself too. And I look forward to seeing what all of your goals are. We would love it if you would list in the comments, what are your goals for 2025? What do you want to change? What do you want to leave behind in 2024 and not look back anymore? And what are you wanting to bring in? We would love to hear it. We would love to hear what you analyze in the gap too. What does your gap look like? What is in that space? And come up with a plan of action for moving forward over that. If you put that in the comments, we may use some of those ideas of what your goals are and elaborate on that over the coming weeks a little bit as well. I hope you have a fantastic week, everybody, and we will see you next week. Goodbye.